They are two of the brightest kids you could ever meet. Troy and Alana Pack of Danville in Northern California. In this photo, Troy is 10 and Alana is 7. The most recent photo we have of them is this marker on their grave. Almost 10 years ago, they were killed by a driver who was drunk and under the influence of painkillers she got from a physician who didn't know all he should have before writing her a prescription. Since then, Bob and Carmen Pack have led the struggle to make California doctors more accountable. Last Monday here in Norwalk, the Troy and Alana Pack Patient Safety Act moved closer to becoming a reality by gathering enough signatures to qualify it for this year's November ballot. All of this, as we say, good Sunday morning, everybody, is the work of our guest today, Jamie Court. You know him if you watch this program at all. He's been on with us many, many times. He's the president of ConsumerWatchdog.org. And we should just, for people who may need the reminder, ConsumerWatchdog.org stems from Prop 103. 103. Which your colleague and the founder of the organization, Harvey Rosenfield, was instrumental in establishing.
Right, he was the author, and it was an insurance reform 25 years ago. We just had a report that we haven't talked about from the Consumer Federation of America. Since we instituted the auto rate regulation, and 25 years ago, rates in California are lower in real dollars for your auto insurance than they were in 1988. And we're the only state in the nation, and Consumer Federation of America said thanks to 103, that's what happened. And the savings, $102 billion with a B. So amazing. Harvey's legacy lives on and continues to inspire us, so we keep moving on.
Harvey very much being with us still.
He's still, he's still in the corner office. He always says we talk about him like he's dead, but he's moving on to other things.
Yeah, and in fact, you've got something coming up involving health insurance, which we will talk about a little bit later in the program. But we're going to begin with Troy and Alana Pack. Monday, the Registrar Recorder's Office in Norwalk. Big event.
Yeah, and Bob Pack and Carmen Pack, the parents of Troy and Alana, were there, and it really, this act is all about them, and it's all about Bob. After a drunk and high driver ran off the road and swerved and tragically killed the 7-year-old and 10-year-old, and also the twins in Carmen's belly, because she was there. Oh, yeah. They had to figure out their life, and they had to figure out what went wrong. And Bob went and created an electronic prescription drug database. He figured out that no one at Kaiser, who had prescribed all these pills, and there was many doctors who prescribed thousands of pills to a drug addict, knew what was going on. I mean, she didn't have any symptoms, but also no one was keeping track of all the pills. So he created a statewide electronic database to keep track of every electronic pill in the state called the Cures database, and it's functioning today, but it's not mandatory. And doctors have not been wanting to use it on a mandatory basis. So part of the Troy and Alana Pack Patient Safety Act is requiring doctors who prescribe Class 2 narcotics to check the database to make sure they're not prescribing the addicts. Part of the act is dealing with another part of substance abuse, which is substance abuse among physicians. And part of the act is dealing with redress in court when there is medical negligence.
Okay, let's make sure folks will recognize the names of some of the prescriptions, some of the drugs that are Class 2, Part 2?
Class 2 narcotics.
Class 2.
I mean, any serious narcotic is a Class 2 narcotic. I don't think Vicodin has yet become a Class 2 narcotic, actually. I think they're considering making it. But, I mean, morphine, any of the Oxycontin, any of the prescription drugs that are part of what we've really seen as an epidemic of drug abuse, particularly among younger people.
And the prescription drugs that it would not be unusual to find them in homes.
That's right. And the Journal of the American Medical Association said the main reason for prescription drug abuse isn't that people are buying out in the black market. It's actually prescriptions written by doctors. So doctors, consciously or unconsciously, are dealing drugs to people who are chronically abusing them. And that is something we're tackling with requiring doctors to take charge of this and check the database before they prescribe the drugs.
And to make sure that our viewers are clear, there are people out there who will, in effect, they go doctor shopping.
And that was what this drunk drug addict driver did. She was doctor shopping. She got as many pills as she could. She literally had thousands of pills, and the doctors didn't know. She didn't really present symptoms, but the doctors really quickly wrote the prescription, which is why another part of the act is holding doctors accountable. See, Bob, after he lost his kid, said, well, what can I do? So he created the database, but he also said, I think Kaiser's responsible. It's a huge corporation. What went wrong? And he was really confounded when he found out, when he went to sue Kaiser, to take them to court, he found out the most that he could collect for the death of his children under a 38-year-old cap in the state law was $250,000. It was set by Jerry Brown in 1975, and it hasn't been indexed for inflation since. So he had a hard time finding an attorney to take his case. He had a hard time holding Kaiser accountable. He didn't want the money. He said at this press conference Monday he wanted accountability, and he didn't feel like he got it. And Kaiser, of course, without having to pay significant damages when something like this goes wrong, they're not inclined to fix their system. Not that they're uncaring people, but they're a corporation. And if they don't pay a financial price, they don't fix the errors. So part of the PAC Act, which voters will see, is indexing this cap that's been in place for 38 years for inflation, so that people who lose children, people who lose senior citizens, people who lose loved ones due to egregious malpractice can get representation. You can, under the law, get lost wages, you can get medical bills, but there are people who, when they die, and it's just an egregious set of circumstances, if you're a child or a senior or a homemaker, low-wage worker, you don't have wage loss, you don't have medical bills, and $250,000 is the maximum. That's just not fair. The value of everything else has gone up since 1975, and Bob and Carmen think that should go up too.
What kind of resistance is there out there?
Oh, the entire medical establishment is against this. Kaiser has put in $5 million, I believe, to the $30 million that's been raised by hospitals, malpractice insurers, the California Medical Association. They don't want change, they don't want accountability, they don't want transparency. But there's also a provision of the initiative that I think they hate more than anything, which is doctor drug testing. You know, pilots are drug tested on a random basis. Janitors are drug tested on a random basis, but particularly transportation workers, bus drivers. Doctors are not. And we have some recent statistics that show substance abuse among doctors is a significant problem too.
It's been a problem for a long time. Doctors writing prescriptions for their own habits.
That and drinking. The California Medical Board found that, and it's a shocking statistic, 18% of physicians will have a substance abuse problem during their careers. That's nearly 1 in 5 doctors. And when ConsumerWatchdog, my group, reviewed the disciplinary actions taken against doctors by the state medical board, the regulator, over the last decade, we found that 1 in 6 of the disciplinary actions against doctors was a result of substance abuse by the doctors. Either they were abusing a substance or they were overprescribing a substance. But that's still a very high number. And there are victims when doctors are drunk or high, and it's not a very large percentage of the doctors, but they can cause a very large amount of damage.
From basic things like a misdiagnosis.
A misdiagnosis, or we've had terrible cases, OBGYNs just pulling too hard and literally paralyzing babies. I mean, we've seen people, that's happened to over the last 20 years, and they're adults now. One woman who lives in Claremont who is literally in the same state Christopher Reeves is in. And the doctor admitted it. He actually went on practicing for another 15 years with a few more lawsuits against him. There's some really tragic cases, and the problem is the medical establishment really doesn't think about accountability, and it's based on peer review. So doctors really, we count on doctors to tell the medical board or to tell other doctors when there's a problem. It doesn't happen enough. There's a sort of a code of silence, and even when, I think most doctors are very ethical. They want to say something. Yeah, they're worried about being sued by the other doctors. So part of the PAC Act actually is when a doctor comes forward to talk about substance abuse or malpractice by another doctor, they're immunized from liability from the other doctor suing them, which is really important. But they're also now, under the PAC Act, if we pass it, there will be a duty for doctors to come forward when they know about adverse events, which is when there is something that goes wrong that shouldn't.
But one would think that if they are operating the way physicians are supposed to, they would welcome this sort of thing.
Yes, and a lot of doctors, we've actually got calls from doctors who welcome it. Unfortunately, the Medical Association in recent years has been very political. So the members of the board are members of the malpractice insurance companies, Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente, as we understand it, pays for all its doctors who want to be California Medical Association members, so it is disproportionately represented. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of those doctors. So they have a big voting share. I think rank and file doctors don't have a problem with random drug testing. By the way, this is only for doctors with hospital privileges. We've taken the same pattern on drug testing as applies to pilots, to bus drivers, to other transportation workers, and said, look, it's random. It could happen to you, so that's a deterrent. Also, if there is a report, a credible report to the medical board, they have the right to order a drug test. And if a doctor refuses it, their license is suspended. Remarkably today, the California Medical Board does not have the ability to tell a doctor they have to be drug tested. They first have to prove a case against them to get a drug test, and by that time there's a lot of damage done.
And we just have about a minute left to go, but is there any comparable, what would we call it, freedom for people who practice other critical professions?
Well, I mean, I think every other public safety job has a duty to be drug tested,
right.
but we also have something, protections for the doctor against false negatives, false positives. There's a right to appeal. This isn't. We're not doing anything that is not been accepted by other professions. So pilots, for instance, they show up for work, and probably once every couple of years, someone asks them to pee in a cup, and that is a real deterrent to pilots drinking, because they know that could happen. It doesn't happen often, but it could happen.
We got to take a break, which is one of the things that happens often. So we'll do that. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please.